After 3 years of deafening silence, I received a letter from my daughter, Nia. My hands were shaking. I was so happy I almost missed the warning. Scrawled in a different ink at the very bottom, almost hidden in the crease, were 9 words. They are coming for the land. Don't trust Preston. Cancel the credit card. A friend. I looked at the envelope again. The return address wasn't from my daughter. It was from a place called the Willow Creek Nursing Home. My blood ran cold. My name is Theodore Holloway. I am 71 years old, and I was sitting in my old dusty auto shop wiping down a carburetor that hadn't seen an engine in years. The shop is quiet. It's been closed for a long time, but I come here every day. It's my routine. It's what I do. It keeps me steady. The silence in this shop is nothing compared to the silence from my daughter. 3 years. 3 solid years since I last heard her voice, since I last saw her face. I remember that last day like it was yesterday. Nia and her new husband, Preston Sinclair. Preston, a young, ambitious lawyer, all sharp suits and a smile that never reached his eyes. He wanted $200,000. Startup capital, he called it. He wanted to start his own firm. I looked him right in his pale blue eyes and I told him no. I told him real success is earned, not given. He got nasty, fast. He told me I was a selfish old man sitting on a gold mine. He gestured around my shop, this old brick garage in a forgotten part of town. He thought this was my gold mine. I told him he was a lazy grifter looking for a handout. I turned to Nia, my only girl. Are you with him on this? She wouldn't look at me. She just stood there staring at the floor and gave a tiny, heartbreaking nod. She chose him. The slam of my front door echoed through the house, and then silence. 3 years of it. Until today. I heard the familiar squeak of the mail slot at the front of the shop. The postman pushed the day's mail through, just bills, junk, and a pale blue envelope. I knew that handwriting. I would know it anywhere. It was Nia's. My old heart, a 71-year-old engine I thought was running on fumes, suddenly kicked into high gear. She was back. She was apologizing. My hands trembled as I picked it up. All the anger from that last fight, all the bitterness of 3 lonely years. It just evaporated. My daughter had written to me. I was about to rip it open right there among the oil rags and the cold tools. But my joy froze. My thumb was covering the return address. I moved it. It wasn't her address in the city. The return address, stamped in neat corporate letters, read Willow Creek Nursing Home Admissions Department. Willow Creek. A nursing home. Why my mind raced. What had happened? Did she get a job there? Was she sick? Or was this some kind of sick joke? A message. My hands were cold now, not trembling with joy, but with a sudden sharp dread. I opened the envelope carefully. The letter inside was written in her hand, but the words felt wrong, foreign. Dearest Daddy, it began. She hasn't called me Daddy since she was 12 years old. I've been thinking about you so much. I'm so worried about you all alone in that big house. It's just too much for you to handle at your age. I worry about you falling or forgetting something. As I read, a glossy trifold brochure fell from the letter onto my lap. Willow Creek Luxury Assisted Living. Your golden years deserve the best. My stomach turned to ice. This wasn't a reconciliation. This was an eviction notice. I stared at the brochure, disgusted. It showed smiling seniors playing chess on a perfect lawn. It was an ad for a place to send people away to be forgotten. But as the brochure fell, it revealed the very bottom of the letter, the part that had been folded over. And I saw it. It wasn't Nia's neat cursive. It was a hurried, desperate scrawl in a different pen crammed into the margin. They are coming for the land. My eyes snapped to that word. The land. Not the house. The land. Don't trust Preston. Cancel the credit card. A friend. I stared at the scrawled words again. They are coming for the land. My mind snagged on that single strange word. The land. Not the house. The land. This wasn't some random prank. This friend knew. They knew the truth. Preston, my son-in-law, didn't just see an old mechanic's shop sitting on a dusty corner. He saw the block. He saw the acreage. He just didn't know who really owned it. Or maybe he did. You see, Preston made the same mistake everyone makes. He looked at my calloused hands, my faded denim overalls, my shop coated in 40 years of grease and dust, and he saw a poor old man. A mechanic past his prime, a relic. He saw exactly what I wanted him to see. He saw what I wanted everyone to see, including my own daughter. My wife, Serena. God rest her soul, she always understood. We never needed much. We grew up poor, and even when the money came, we lived simply. We liked the quiet, we liked the privacy. The money, as Serena and I used to call it, didn't come from fixing broken-down Fords. Not really. 40 years ago, when I was just a young man in my 30s trying to keep engines running for the local construction crews, I had an idea. I was working on a piece of heavy machinery, a big caterpillar, and the hydraulic system was always failing. The valve. It was always the valve. It couldn't handle the pressure, so I fixed it. I spent 6 months in this very garage welding late into the night, sketching on napkins, failing and trying again. I wasn't an engineer. I was just a mechanic who understood pressure. I built a new kind of specialized hydraulic valve component, one that wouldn't fail, one that could withstand triple the pressure of anything on the market. I patented it. A year later, a major manufacturing corporation flew me to their headquarters in Illinois. They didn't just want the component, they wanted the patent. They offered me a number that sounded like a foreign language. I sold it. And just like that, Theodore Holloway, a simple mechanic from the neighborhood, was a millionaire. But Serena and I, we didn't change. We didn't buy a mansion in the suburbs. We didn't buy flashy cars. We stayed right here. I kept fixing engines because I liked the work. It kept my hands busy and my mind clear. But I started investing. Quietly. I bought the building my shop was in, then the apartment building next to it when it went into foreclosure, then the laundromat and the grocery store on the corner, then the next building and the next. Over 4 decades, while everyone thought I was just scraping by, I bought the entire commercial block. Nia. I never told her. It was the hardest secret I ever kept. When she was just a baby, Serena and I made a promise. Our child would value hard work, not wealth. She would learn character, not entitlement. We raised her to be strong, to be independent, to make her own way. We paid for her college, of course, but we told her it was our life savings. We wanted her to think that was all we had. But I see now maybe we protected her too much. We made life too simple for her. Nia and that husband of hers, they look at this neighborhood and see decay. They see an old shop they think is worthless, maybe worth a few $100,000 if they sell the land for scrap. They have no idea that Holloway Properties, my quiet little holding company, owns 4 apartment buildings, 2 retail spaces, and this very shop. They have no idea the land they are coming for is worth an estimated $30 million. My eyes snapped back to the letter, "Cancel the credit card." My heart hammered against my ribs. The card. Oh, Lord. I'd almost forgotten. I scrambled to my feet, my knees cracking in protest. I rushed to the old metal desk in the corner, the one buried under invoices from 1995. I pulled open the bottom drawer, shoving aside old manuals and dried-up pens. There it was, an old checkbook register. Tucked inside the back cover was the information. 3 years ago. Just after Nia met Preston, but before the wedding. She had called me crying. Her car broke down. She couldn't afford the repair. She was stranded. I felt that panic every parent feels. I went to the bank the next day. I gave her a supplementary credit card. "This is for emergencies only, Nia," I'd told her, my voice firm. "Just in case you get into real trouble, just so I know you're safe." The limit was $10,000. I never checked the statements. It was an emergency card. If she needed it, she would tell me. That's what I believed. That's the kind of relationship I thought we had. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling with the numbers for the bank. The automated voice was maddening. "Press 1 for account services. Press 4 for card services." I kept pressing 0, growling at the machine, until finally a human voice answered. "Capital Trust Bank, this is Maria speaking. How can I help you?" "My name is Theodore Holloway. I need to check the status of a supplementary card on my account. The name is Nia Sinclair." "Yes, Mr. Holloway, I see that card right here. One moment, please." I held my breath. The silence on the line was filled with the loud ticking of the old clock on my shop wall. Tick, tock. Each tick felt like a hammer blow. "All right, sir," Maria said, her voice bright and professional. "The supplementary card ending in 4582 in the name of Nia Sinclair currently has a balance of $9,845.12. I gripped the phone. The metal body of it felt suddenly slick in my hand. What? $9,845, sir? The $10,000 limit has almost been reached. What was the last charge? My voice was barely a whisper. Let me see. That would be a transaction posted just 30 minutes ago. A lunch charge at Le Bernardin for $302. Le Bernardin. A place I'd only read about in magazines. A place where a single plate costs more than I spend on groceries in a month. They were at lunch. A $300 lunch. Maxing out my emergency credit card. Celebrating their plan to put me in a nursing home. Sending me a brochure for my own prison. The audacity. The sheer cold-blooded disrespect. The anger that rose in me wasn't hot. It was ice. A cold, heavy, sharp block of it settling right in my chest. They weren't just planning my demise. They were having a party on my dime while doing it. Mr. Holloway, Maria asked, are you still there? My voice was steady now, colder than I'd ever heard it. Yes, Maria, I'm here. I want you to do two things for me. First, I want you to cancel that supplementary card, not freeze it, cancel it, terminate it, right now. Yes, sir, I can do that. And the second thing, I want you to send me a full itemized statement of every charge made on that card for the past 3 years. Send it to my lawyer, Evelyn Reed. You have her information on file. Right away, Mr. Holloway. I hung up the phone. I sat down hard on my workbench. The silence of the shop returned, but it was different now. It was no longer the silence of peace. It was the silence of a coming storm. They thought I was a foolish old man. They thought I was weak. They thought I was poor. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I hung up with the bank. The rage was so cold it burned. $9,845. My emergency fund spent on $300 lunches. My fingers were steady now. The shaking from my initial joy was long gone, replaced by a chilling clarity. I scrolled through my contacts, past the auto parts suppliers, past the hardware store, until I found the name I trusted most in the world. Evelyn Reed. The phone rang twice. Her voice, as always, was sharp, no nonsense. Theodore, it's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. This isn't our usual chat time. Is something wrong? Evelyn isn't just my lawyer. She's been my lawyer for 30 years, but she was Serena's best friend first. When Serena passed, when my wife was taken from me by the cancer, Evelyn was the one who handled everything. She was the one who found me sitting in this dark shop, unable to move, and forced a sandwich into my hand. She was the one who held my arm at the funeral, her own tears streaming, but her grip like steel. She's the only person on this planet who knows about the patent, about the properties, about the 30 million. Something's wrong, Evie, I said, my voice low. I told her everything. I started with the mail, the pale blue envelope, the glossy brochure for Willow Creek. A nursing home, she said, her voice dripping with disgust. That little... Wait, I said. It gets worse. I told her about the 9 words scrawled at the bottom, the warning. Cancel the credit card. You did right. Tell me you canceled it, Theo. I did, I said, but not before I checked the balance. $9,845.12. They were eating lunch at Le Bernardin while I was reading their letter about putting me in a home. There was a silence on the line, a heavy, dangerous silence. When Evelyn Reed gets quiet, it means she's moving from lawyer to warrior. Those ungrateful, parasitic children, she finally spat. After everything you and Serena did. After... She stopped herself. Okay, no more emotion. Action. They've declared war, Theo. We need to arm ourselves. What do you mean? You need a private investigator, she said. You need eyes and ears. We know what they're planning, but we need to know why. And we need to know when. They're desperate. Desperate people do stupid, dangerous things. We need to be one step ahead. You know someone? I know the best, Evelyn said. He's young, but he's sharp as a razor. Ex-military intelligence. He's discreet, he's thorough, and he's ours. His name is Dante Marcus. I'm sending you his number. Meet him. Today. Tell him everything. And Theo, be careful. This isn't a family squabble anymore. This is a hunt. Evelyn was right. Dante Marcus was professional. We met an hour later at a quiet coffee shop in a different neighborhood, far from my shop and far from Preston's high-rise office. It was the kind of place with worn-out booths and coffee that tasted like burnt wood. Perfect. Dante Marcus was in his 40s with a calm presence that immediately put me at ease. He wore a simple button-down shirt, no flashy suit, no movie PI trench coat. He just looked like a man who paid attention. He was already sitting in the back booth when I arrived. He stood up. "Mr. Holloway, Evelyn Reed speaks very highly of you." "She speaks highly of you too, Mr. Marcus," I said, sliding into the booth. I was still in my work overalls. I hadn't bothered to change. The poor mechanic act was second nature by now, but this man, I had a feeling he saw right through it. "Let's not waste time," he said, pulling out a small encrypted tablet. Evelyn gave me the basics. A daughter, a son-in-law, and a nursing home brochure. Fill in the blanks. I handed him the letter. He looked at it, his eyes scanning the glossy brochure first, then the sweet fake letter from Nia, and finally he zoomed in on the 9-word warning at the bottom. "The land," he said, tapping the word. "Not the house, that's specific." "It is," I said. "They think I just own the shop. They think it's worthless. They're wrong." Dante looked up from the tablet, his gaze sharp. "How wrong?" $30 million wrong, I said. Dante didn't blink. He just nodded, absorbing the information. "That moves this from family drama to a high-stakes felony. What do you need from me?" "I need everything," I said, leaning forward. My voice was low. "I want to know everything about Preston Sinclair and my daughter Nia. I want to know where they go, who they talk to. I want to know how much debt they're in. Evelyn said they're desperate. I need to know how desperate. Are we talking missed a car payment desperate, or are we talking someone's going to break their legs desperate?" Dante typed rapidly. "Financial deep dive. Understood." "Second," I said, pushing the Willow Creek brochure across the table. "This place. I want to know if they've been there. Did Preston make an appointment? Did he have a tour? I want to know if he mentioned my name and if he asked about the process for involuntary commitment." The word felt disgusting in my mouth. Involuntary. "I'll have a file from Willow Creek by tomorrow morning," Dante said. "And finally," I said, tapping the scrawled warning on the letter, this friend, this is the most important part. Someone in their circle, someone close enough to know about the land, close enough to know about Preston, close enough to know about my credit card. Someone warned me. I need to know who." Dante looked at the note for a long time. "This handwriting is educated, but rushed, desperate. This person is taking a huge risk. Finding them will be difficult. It could expose my investigation." "I understand the risk," I said. "I need to know who I can trust. Right now that list has 2 names on it, yours and Evelyn Reed's. I'd like to add a third." Dante nodded slowly. "I'll make it a priority. My services aren't cheap, Mr. Holloway." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a thick envelope of cash. The $10,000 I'd set aside from the patent money all those years ago, just for a rainy day. "This is the retainer," I said, sliding it across the table. "You'll get the rest plus a bonus when this is done." He didn't count it. He just slipped the envelope into his bag and closed his tablet. "You'll hear from me in 48 hours, he said. He stood up, gave me a slight nod, and walked out of the coffee shop, blending perfectly into the afternoon crowd. I sat there for another 10 minutes, the smell of burnt coffee filling my nose. The last time I had felt this way, this strange mix of cold fear and righteous anger, was 40 years ago when I decided to bet my entire life on a single piece of metal I invented in my garage. This time I wasn't betting on an invention. I was betting on myself. It was 2 days, 48 hours, the longest 2 days of my life. I didn't go home. I stayed in the shop, sleeping on the old cot in the back office. I sat in the dark listening to the drip of a leaky faucet, and I waited. I was a man waiting for his own execution or for the weapons to stop it. Dante's call came on Thursday afternoon. His voice was different, colder. No professional pleasantries this time. "Mr. Holloway, I have the preliminary report. It is extensive. Can you meet?" "I'm at the shop," I said. "No," he replied, his voice firm. "Not there, not your home, the coffee shop, 1 hour." The line clicked dead. I walked the 10 blocks, feeling the eyes of the neighborhood on me. Did they see a grieving widower or just a broke old man? It didn't matter. They were all wrong. I saw him in the same back booth. He didn't stand up this time. He just motioned for me to sit. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, and I had a feeling it wasn't because of my case, but because of what he'd found. He opened his tablet and turned the screen toward me. He didn't speak. He just let me read. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Mr. Holloway," he said as I stared at the numbers. "Your son-in-law isn't just a grifter. He's a cornered animal. And you were right. They aren't just desperate. They are drowning." The first file he opened was a financial summary. My breath caught in my chest. "Preston Sinclair and your daughter, Nia Holloway Sinclair, are currently $540,000 in debt." $500,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. I knew they were living beyond their means. I saw the flashy clothes Nia wore in her social media pictures. I saw the expensive car Preston drove, but this was a crater. "How?" I whispered. "How is that possible?" His law firm, Dante interrupted, "is the source of the problem. He's an embezzler." My heart hammered. Dante swiped to another screen. "Preston Sinclair didn't just take out bad loans, Mr. Holloway. He stole from his clients. He took $400,000 from his firm's client trust account. He told his partners it was for a high-yield, short-term investment. A sure thing. He lost it all," Dante said, his voice flat. "Every single cent, in a high-risk crypto scheme that collapsed 3 months ago." I remembered Preston bragging at a family dinner years ago about how he was smarter than the market, how only fools worked for a wage. I had dismissed it as the arrogance of youth. I was wrong. It was the sales pitch of a thief. Dante continued. "The firm's partners are auditing the books. They know the money is gone. They gave Preston until the end of this month to replace the funds, or they are turning him over to the Bar Association and the district attorney." Dante looked me dead in the eye. "He's not just going to lose his job. He's going to prison. He's about to be disbarred, disgraced, and incarcerated, unless he finds $500,000 immediately." My mind flashed back to that last fight, his demand for $200,000 for startup capital. He wasn't trying to start a business. He was trying to cover his theft. He was trying to plug a sinking ship with my money. And when I said no, he started looking for another way to get it. "But the apartment," I stammered. "The car, Nia's pictures. She's always at some party, some gala." "It's all a lie," Dante said, his voice laced with contempt. "A house of cards. They are frauds, Mr. Holloway, through and through." He swiped again. "A lease agreement. The penthouse they're living in, the one with the rooftop pool, they're 6 months behind on rent. The landlord filed eviction papers last week. They're being kicked out in 10 days. He swiped again. "A vehicle report. The luxury car Preston drives, it's a lease. It's scheduled for repossession on Monday. The life they've been showing off, the glamorous trips, the expensive dinners, it was all funded by stolen client money. And when that ran out..." He didn't have to finish. "It was funded by my credit card," I said. "That $9,800 balance. It was all charged in the last 2 months. Since the crypto scheme collapsed, they were using your emergency money to keep the illusion alive to buy themselves time. My own daughter, living a life of pure fraud. She wasn't just complicit. She was a willing partner. She knew. She had to know. Those $300 lunches made sense now. They weren't a celebration. They were a frantic final indulgence before the whole thing came crashing down. They weren't just desperate for money. They were desperate to maintain the illusion of money." "So," I said, my voice hoarse, "that's where I come in. The senile old man. The worthless piece of land." Dante nodded grimly. "That brings me to part 2. Willow Creek. His operative, he explained, had visited the nursing home yesterday posing as the son of a wealthy widow. He had charmed the admissions coordinator. He got the visitor logs. "Preston Sinclair was there," Dante said, tapping the screen. 3 days ago, the day before you received that letter. He had a full tour, but he wasn't just looking." Dante played a short audio file. It was his operative talking to the coordinator. The woman sounded nervous. "Oh, yes," the coordinator's voice said. "Mr. Sinclair, a very intense young man. He was asking about his father-in-law. He said the man was confused." The operative's voice asked, "Confused how?" "He said his father-in-law was becoming a danger to himself, forgetting things, getting lost. He wanted to know about our mandatory intake process. I tried to explain that we require the residents' consent, that it's a community, not a prison, but he kept asking about exceptions." The coordinator's voice dropped to a whisper. He used the phrase cognitively impaired relative. He wanted to know if a power of attorney would be enough to sign his father-in-law in even if the man resisted. My heart hammered against my ribs. He wasn't just asking. He was planning. He was researching the legalities of my kidnapping. But he needs a doctor to declare me incompetent, I said. He can't just do it. He tried, Dante replied. This is the escalation. When Willow Creek told him he needed a medical certification, he went doctor shopping. Dante pulled up another file. Emails. Call logs. First he contacted a Dr. Eris Thorne, a psychiatrist at Mount Sinai. He told him his 71-year-old father-in-law was wandering at night and was a danger to himself. He claimed I was having violent outbursts. Violent, I've never raised my voice in 30 years. Dr. Thorne requested an in-person evaluation with you, Mr. Holloway. Preston said that was impossible as you were too unstable. Dr. Thorne declined the case. Then, Dante continued, he contacted a Dr. Lena Halpern, a specialist in geriatric psychology. This time he was more aggressive. He told her you were suffering from advanced dementia and needed to be institutionalized for your own safety. Dr. Halpern, to her credit, looked up your medical history. She found you had a clean bill of health from your last physical. She asked Preston why his story contradicted your medical file. He became irate. He offered her, and I quote, a very generous retainer to simply review family testimony and sign the commitment papers, no evaluation needed. What did she do? I asked. She threatened to report him to the Bar Association for attempted bribery. He hung up. Dante leaned back and crossed his arms. He's failing, Mr. Holloway. He's striking out. He's running out of time. The law partners are auditing. The banks are calling. The eviction is pending. The car is being repossessed. He needs a win, and he needs it now. I sat back, the cold, bitter coffee untouched on the table. The whole ugly picture was crystal clear. They were trapped, utterly and completely. And they looked at me, a lonely 71-year-old widower, a simple man sitting on a piece of land. They didn't know about the 30 million. They didn't need to. They just thought my little block of land, my gold mine, was worth enough. Enough to sell quickly to a developer, maybe for a few $100,000, maybe $1 million. Enough to pay off the most dangerous debts. Enough to keep the fraud going just a little longer. And to get it, they just needed one thing. They needed to erase me. They need my signature, I whispered. Or, Dante said, his voice grim, they need a court to agree with them that you can't be trusted to sign anything. So, I said, my mind already calculating, moving past the anger into the cold, hard realm of strategy. They need to prove I'm senile. Yes, Dante said. And they need to do it fast. I nodded slowly. A cold, hard plan began to form in my mind. If they needed a senile old man, I thought then that's exactly what I was going to give them. I sat in the dust of my shop staring at the glowing screen of Dante's report. $540,000. Embezzlement. Disbarment. Eviction. They weren't just in trouble. They were at the bottom of a hole so deep they couldn't see the sky, and I was the only ladder, a ladder they planned to chop up for firewood as soon as they climbed out. They were desperate, and as Dante said, desperate people do dangerous things. My phone resting on the workbench suddenly vibrated, its buzz sounding like an angry hornet in the silence. I looked down. The name on the screen made my heart stop. NIA. She was calling me. After 3 years of silence, after sending a letter plotting my imprisonment, she was calling me. The report, the warning, the credit card bill, it all swirled in my head. My first instinct was to pick up and roar to unleash the 71 years of fury and betrayal I felt. But Evelyn's voice echoed in my mind. Be an actor, Theo. Let them expose themselves. I let it ring once, twice. I took a deep, steadying breath. I let my shoulders slump. I thought about Serena. I thought about the loneliness. I forced the moisture into my eyes. I pictured the broken down, confused old man they wanted me to be. On the third ring, I picked up. My hand was shaking, but this time it was part of the performance. Hello? I said, my voice intentionally weak, raspy. There was a pause, then a voice I barely recognized, a voice dripping with so much artificial honey it made my stomach turn. Daddy? Oh, thank goodness. It's me. It's Nia. Nia, I said as if confused. Nia, baby, is that really you? Yes, Daddy, it's me, she chirped. Oh, I've been so worried. Did you get my letter? I sent a letter. I've been just sick to my stomach wondering if you got it. I haven't been able to sleep at all just thinking about you. I could hear the lie in every syllable. This wasn't the daughter I raised. This was a saleswoman. This was Preston's parrot. Yes, honey, I stammered, playing my part. I got it. Just now. The mail just came. And did you see the brochure? She asked, her voice tight with anticipation. Yes, baby. The Willow Creek place. It looks real pretty. I let my voice crack just a little. The pictures are so nice. All the smiling people. Then I delivered the bait. I put every ounce of real 3-year-old loneliness I had into it. It's just so quiet here, Nia. Ever since your mother, well, it's just so quiet. I'm so lonely, baby. I heard her sharp, quiet intake of breath on the other end of the line. It was the sound of a trap snapping shut, the sound of a predator that has just seen its prey stumble. The fake anxious worry in her voice vanished. It was replaced by a bright, brittle, triumphant energy. She had me. She thought she had me. Oh, Daddy, I know, she exclaimed, her voice suddenly strong. I knew you were feeling that way, and that's why I have the most wonderful news. I stayed silent. I just let her talk, let her weave the net. Preston and I, we've been talking nonstop about it. We just can't bear the thought of you being alone one more day, not when there's a place like Willow Creek where you could be so happy. So, we booked tickets. My grip on the phone tightened. Booked tickets. We're flying in this weekend, Daddy. We land Friday night. We'll pick you up Saturday morning, and we can all go and tour Willow Creek together. We can have lunch there, meet the staff. You can pick out your room. Isn't that just perfect? She wasn't asking me if I wanted to go. She wasn't asking for my opinion. She was telling me the schedule. This wasn't an invitation. This was an ambush. They were coming to close the deal. They would show up all smiles and concern. They would walk me through the shiny halls of that prison. And then they would put the papers in front of me. The papers Preston had already mentioned in my house. The papers that would give them power of attorney. The papers that would sign over my life, my land, my $30 million secret, all to cover their $500,000 crime. And if I refused, they would use my confusion, my loneliness, my frailty against me. They would start the legal proceedings Dante had warned me about. They had tried to get the doctors. Now they were coming to try me. A cold, hard resolve settled over me. They wanted a show I would give them the performance of a lifetime. I needed to make my voice tremble. I thought about Serena. I thought about the day I buried her. The tremble came easily. Oh, Nia, I whispered as if overcome with emotion. You're coming here this weekend. Oh, baby, that's just... I faked a small sob. That's just wonderful. You're such a good daughter, thinking of your old lonely father. Of course, Daddy, she said, her voice victorious. We just love you so much. We'll see you Saturday morning, 10 o'clock sharp. Yes, baby, I whispered. Daddy will be waiting. I'll be right here, waiting for you. I hung up the phone. The performance was over. I was no longer the frail, confused old man. I stood up straight. I looked around my dusty, silent shop. This wasn't just my sanctuary. It was my fortress, and the enemy had just told me the exact time of their attack. All right, you devils, I whispered to the empty oil-stained room. Let's play. I placed the phone back in its cradle. The click echoed in the dusty garage. My daughter's voice, dripping with fake concern, still hung in the air. We just love you so much, Daddy. We'll see you Saturday, 10 o'clock sharp. I stood motionless for a full minute. The cold, hard anger had now settled into something else, something solid. A plan. They were coming. They had given me the exact time of their attack. They thought they were coming to find a frail, senile old man, confused and lonely, ready to be led to a slaughterhouse called Willow Creek. They had no idea that I had just declared war. My first call was to Evelyn Reed. Her number was second on my speed dial right after Serena's, which I still couldn't bring myself to delete. She picked up on the first ring. "Evelyn." "They're coming, Evie," I said. My voice was low, steady. "Saturday, 10 a.m. They're coming to take me on a tour of the nursing home." I heard her take a sharp breath. "They're moving fast, faster than I thought. Dante's report was correct. They're drowning in debt and they're coming for your life raft." "So what's our move?" I asked. "I'm not going to let them in my house." "No, Theo," she said, and her voice became the one I'd heard in boardrooms and legal depositions. It was the voice that didn't ask. It commanded. "That's exactly what you're going to do. You are going to let them in. You are going to welcome them. You are going to be the performance of your life. I'm looping in Dante. Hold on." A beep, and then Dante's calm, professional voice joined the line. "Mr. Holloway, Miss Reed." "Dante, they're on the move," Evelyn said. "Saturday morning. They're coming to the house to take him to the nursing home for a visit." "The persuasion phase," Dante said. "It's the last step before they file for a forced guardianship. They need to prove they tried to help him." "Exactly," Evelyn said, "and we are going to let them. Theo, listen to me very, very carefully. This is your stage. You are no longer the sharp, angry man who called me 2 days ago. From this moment until Saturday, you are a 71-year-old man who is terrified of being alone, who is losing his grip, and who is pathetically grateful for his daughter's sudden attention." I balked. "Evie, I can't grovel to them. Not after what they—" "Yes, you can." She cut me off, her voice like flint. "You've been acting for 40 years, Theo. You acted like a simple mechanic while you built a $30 million empire. This is just one more role. You are weak, you are confused, you are frightened. You need to make them feel powerful. You need to make them feel safe. Safe enough to say what they're really thinking." Dante's voice cut in. "Evelyn is right, Mr. Holloway. My part of the plan depends on your performance. They need to feel safe, because when they do, they will get sloppy. They will make the threat." "What threat?" I asked. "The one we need," Dante said. "They won't just ask you to go. When you hesitate, they will threaten you. They will say the words incompetent. They will say court order. They will say guardianship. They will lay out their entire illegal plan, believing you're too senile to understand it. And when they do, we will be listening." "Listening how?" "My team will be at your house tonight," Dante said. "After midnight. We'll wire the main living areas. The kitchen, the living room, and your shop. It's your property. It's perfectly legal. We will install high-fidelity audio recorders. When they arrive on Saturday, every word they say will be captured. Every threat, every manipulation, every time they mention selling the land to pay for your care. We need that conspiracy spoken aloud. Can you get them to do it, Mr. Holloway? Can you be that confused old man for them?" I thought about Naya's voice on the phone. "I'll be right here, waiting for you." "Oh, yes," I said, a cold smile touching my lips. "I can be whatever they need me to be. When do we start?" "You start now," Evelyn said. "Dante, you get your equipment. Theo, you go set your stage." I hung up the phone and looked around my small, neat house. It was the home I had shared with Serena. It was clean. It was organized. It was a place of peace. It was all wrong. It wasn't the home of a man who was losing his mind. I took a deep breath. "All right, Serena," I whispered to the empty room. "Forgive me for what I'm about to do to our home, but it's for justice." I went to the kitchen first. I took the clean dishes from the rack and put them back in the sink. I added the morning's coffee mug. I left a half-empty carton of milk on the counter. I sprinkled coffee grounds on the stovetop and left them there. It looked like someone had tried to make breakfast and had given up halfway. Next, I went to my desk. I had a file of old utility bills all neatly paid and stamped. I took out a red ink pad I used for the shop and a past due stamp. I stamped 3 of them: an electric bill, a water bill. I scattered them on the dining room table right where they would see them. I added a fake letter I'd printed from city collections, warning of a service shutoff. Let them think I couldn't even manage my own bills. Then the master stroke. I went to the stove. I turned one of the gas burners on, just a tiny bit. The click, click, click of the igniter filled the kitchen. I let it run for 10 seconds, just long enough for the smell of natural gas to fill the air. Then I turned it off. When they arrived, the first thing they would smell was gas. The first thing they would see was an unpaid bill. The first thing they would think was, he's a danger to himself. He can't be left alone. I went to my bedroom. I took my house keys from the hook by the door and put them in the refrigerator tucked behind the butter. I took the television remote from the living room and left it on the bathroom sink. I went to the mirror and looked at myself. I hadn't shaved in 2 days. Good. I messed up my hair. I found an old cardigan, one of Serena's favorites that I kept, and I put it on. It was worn at the elbows. It smelled like cedar. I looked old. I looked tired. I looked like their perfect victim. I went out to the shop, the gold mine they thought was a garbage heap. I did the same. I left valuable tools out as if I'd forgotten to put them away. I opened an old ledger book and scribbled meaningless numbers in the margins like a man who couldn't count. As I worked, the anger burned clean. This wasn't just about $30 million. I would have given that money to Nia if she had just been a daughter, if she had just loved me. No, this wasn't about money. This was about identity. They weren't just trying to steal my property. They were trying to steal me. They were trying to steal my mind, my dignity, my name. They were trying to erase Theodore Holloway and replace him with a cognitively impaired relative who could be filed away in a home. They were about to find out that Theodore Holloway was not going down that easily. I finished setting the stage. The house was a perfect portrait of decay and confusion. I sat in my old armchair, the one Serena loved, and I waited for the clock to tick down. Dante's team would come in the night silent as ghosts planting the seeds of the truth. And then on Saturday, my children would walk into my parlor, not realizing they weren't the spiders. They were the flies. I heard the car door slam outside. 10 o'clock. Sharp. They were punctual. I give them that. I was in the kitchen wiping the counter with a dry rag. I heard their footsteps on the porch. Then the doorbell rang. Not a friendly knock, but an impatient ding-dong. My heart wasn't pounding. It was steady. It was cold. This was not a family visit. This was a tactical operation, and I was ready. Showtime, I whispered to the empty, silent house. I shuffled my feet as I walked to the door, making my gait slow and uncertain. I let them ring a second time, impatient, good. Let them think the old man is slow, maybe he's fallen. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hand pretending to shake. Just a minute, I called out, my voice thin and reedy. I finally pulled the door open. There they were. Nia, Preston. They looked like they were attending a funeral. My funeral. Preston immediately plastered on that smile, the one he used when he was about to sell something. It was all teeth. "Dad," he said, stepping in and pulling me into an embrace. It was hard, quick, and cold. He smelled of expensive cologne, the kind that tries too hard. "You look tired." I looked past him. My daughter, Nia. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She was wearing a beige cashmere coat, something new, something expensive. My emergency credit card had probably paid for that. "Oh, Daddy," she said, hugging me lightly. Her face turned away as if she couldn't stand the smell of my old shop clothes. She immediately pulled back and started fussing with a small speck of dust on her sleeve. "It's so good to see you." "You too, baby," I whispered. Come in. Come in. The house it's a bit of a mess." I let them walk past me into the living room. Dante's microphones were hidden in the overhead lamp in the bookshelf, and one was placed directly on the mantelpiece, disguised as a small, carved wooden bird Serena had loved. They stood in the center of the room. I watched them take it all in, the dusty surfaces, the old newspapers I'd piled on the coffee table. Nia put her hand to her nose. "Goodness, Daddy. What is that smell?" Preston sniffed the air, his brow furrowing in fake concern. "It smells like gas. Is that gas?" He rushed past me into the kitchen, a performance of heroic panic. "Theo, the stove. You left a burner on." I shuffled after them. "Oh dear," I said, my voice trembling. "I was making tea. I must have forgotten to light it." Preston made a great show of twisting the knob off and opening the back window, wafting the air. "Good Lord, Dad, you could have blown up the whole house. You could have been killed." Nia leaned against the doorframe, her hand over her heart. "Daddy, you promised you were being careful. This is exactly what we were worried about." Her panic was almost convincing, but I knew she wasn't panicking about my safety. She was panicking that her $30 million asset might have gone up in smoke before she could cash it in. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, looking at the floor. "I'm just so forgetful these days." Preston's eyes narrowed. He looked at me, then around the kitchen. He was building his case. He was gathering his evidence. "Forgetful," he said. He walked over to my refrigerator and opened the door. He looked inside. "Dad, why are your house keys in the refrigerator?" I looked up, feigning total confusion. "Are they—" Oh my. I must have put them there when I got the milk. How silly of me. "It's not silly, Dad," Preston said, his voice now taking on a grave, condescending tone. "It's dangerous." He closed the fridge and his eyes scanned the rest of the house. He walked into the hall, looked into the bathroom. And, "Why is the television remote on the bathroom sink?" "I don't remember," I whispered. He walked back into the living room. His eyes landed on the dining table. He walked over and picked up the stack of bills I had so carefully past due stamped. "Theo," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "These are all unpaid. The electric, the water. This one says final notice. Are you not paying your bills, Dad?" I sank into my armchair, the one Serena loved, and put my face in my hands. This was the most important part of the performance. I had to be broken. "I don't know, son," I mumbled into my hands. "I look at the numbers, and they don't make sense anymore. It's too much. I just get so confused." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. The look, Preston and Nia. They locked eyes over my bowed, shaking head. It was a glance of pure, unadulterated victory. It was the look of two jackals who had just cornered their prey. They thought they had me. They thought I was done. And the little wooden bird on the mantelpiece recorded it all. Preston pulled a chair from the dining table and sat directly in front of me, leaning in close, his knees almost touching mine. He was radiating false empathy. "Dad," he said, his voice soft and low. "Dad, listen to me. This isn't your fault. You're not a bad person. You're just ill. This is what happens. We all get old. The mind, it gets tired." Nia knelt by the side of my chair, placing her hand on my arm. Her touch felt like an insect crawling on my skin. "Daddy, this is exactly what we were talking about," she said, her voice like a syrupy medicine. "We are not angry. We're so worried. We love you so much. We can't stand seeing you live like this, in danger, confused." I looked up, letting a tear roll down my cheek. "But what can I do? I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Preston said a little too quickly. "You're our father. And that's why we have a solution. A wonderful solution." He reached into his expensive leather briefcase and pulled out the glossy Willow Creek brochure. He opened it on my lap. "We went to see it yesterday, Dad, just to check. It's beautiful. It's not a home, Theo. It's a community." Nia chimed in right on cue. "They have a swimming pool, Daddy, an indoor heated pool, and art classes. You always loved to sketch, and so many new friends to talk to, people your own age." "She's right," Preston said. "And the best part, you won't have to worry about anything. Not bills, not cooking, not cleaning, not leaving the gas on." He let that hang in the air. How could I afford such a place? I asked, my voice the perfect blend of hope and fear. It must cost a fortune. Preston smiled. That smooth, shark-like smile. "That's the other best part, Dad. We've figured it all out." He reached into his briefcase again. He pulled out a thick stack of papers and a pen. "Here's what we're thinking. To pay for it, all you have to do is let us help. Let us take this burden off your shoulders. We can sell the old shop." Nia nodded eagerly. "Exactly. That old shop is just sitting there collecting dust. It's probably worth, I don't know." She waved her hand dismissively. "A few $100,000, maybe more than enough for you to live in luxury at Willow Creek for the rest of your life." My heart almost burst. Not with sadness, but with a laughter so dark and bitter I almost choked on it. A few 100,000. I pictured the blueprints in my safe deposit box, the ones for the Holloway Plaza that Serena and I had dreamed of building, the high-rises, the retail space, the $30 million valuation, and they were dismissing it as a few 100,000. They were so arrogant, so blindingly, stupidly ignorant. This was the moment. I let my face crumble. I pulled my hand away from Nia's. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No. The shop. It's all I have left. It was my place. Your mother, Serena, she loved that shop. She helped me paint the sign. I can't. Please, don't ask me to sell the shop." I had used Serena's name. I knew it would be a low blow, but I needed to push them. I needed to move them from persuasion to coercion. Nia, my own daughter, actually had the nerve to flinch. She looked pained for a moment. But Preston had no such filter. His patience snapped. The performance was over. His face hardened. The fake empathetic smile vanished, replaced by a tight, irritated line. "Listen, Theo," he said, his voice dropping the daddy and taking on a cold, hard edge. "We don't have time for these sentimental games. We are trying to help you." "But I don't want to go," I said, my voice rising in a fake panic. "I won't sign. It's my shop. It's my house." Preston stood up. He loomed over me, the predator finally showing his teeth. "You're not understanding me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're not well, Theo. We just proved it. You left the gas on. You're not paying your bills. You're putting your keys in the refrigerator. You are not competent to make these decisions anymore." "That's not true," I cried. "I'm just a little tired. "Stop it," he barked, and Nia, my daughter, just sat there, silent. She let him bark at me. "We don't want to do this," Preston continued, his voice like ice. "But if you fight us on this, if you refuse to sign, we will take it to a judge. We already have the paperwork. We will file for a court-ordered guardianship. We will stand up in court and we will list every single one of these things, the gas, the bills, the confusion, the fact that you can't be trusted with your own life." He leaned in his face inches from mine. "Do you really want that, Theo? Do you want to be dragged into a courtroom? Do you want a stranger in a black robe to declare you a crazy person like a child who can't be trusted?" He tapped the papers in his hand. "Or you can just sign. We can handle this as a family, quietly, with dignity. It's your choice. Sign the papers, or we will have you declared mentally incompetent. It's that simple." I stared at him. He thought he had just checkmated me. He thought he had just threatened a confused, terrified old man into giving up his life. He had no idea. He had just signed his own confession. I looked at the little wooden bird on the mantelpiece. "Gotcha," I thought. His words hung in the air. Mentally incompetent. Dragged into a courtroom, he had laid his cards on the table. He had made his threat, and the little wooden bird on the mantelpiece had heard every single beautiful, incriminating word. Now it was my turn to fold. I let out the breath I was holding, but I didn't let it come out as anger. I let it come out as a sob. A dry, racking, defeated sob. This was the performance of my life. I let my head fall completely into my hands. I made my shoulders shake. I thought about Serena. I thought about the day I lost her, the day I truly felt this broken. And I channeled that grief. I wept. "Don't," I choked out. "Please, son, don't do that. Not a court, please." I looked up at him, my eyes streaming with fake tears. I'm so scared. You're right. The gas, the keys. I don't know what I'm doing anymore." I saw Nia's face soften. She actually looked relieved. Preston, his face didn't soften. It relaxed. The tension left his shoulders. The predatory look in his eyes faded, replaced by the smug satisfaction of a winner. He had won. He had broken the old man. "Daddy," Nia whispered, moving to pat my back. "It's okay. It's for the best. We'll take care of you." I looked at Preston, my eyes still pleading. "I'll sign." I whispered the words, tasting like ash. "You're right. I can't be alone anymore. I'll sign the papers. Whatever you want." Preston let out a slow, satisfied breath. "Good," he said, his voice now kind again, like a zookeeper rewarding a trained animal. "That's the right decision, Dad. The smart decision." He patted his briefcase, pulling out the thick stack of papers I had seen earlier. "See, it's all right here. Just a simple power of attorney. It just gives me the ability to..." Manage your affairs. Pay your bills. Sell that old shop. Get you into Willow Creek. It's all very standard. He clicked his expensive pen and held it out to me, placing the document on my lap. I looked at the pen. I looked at the paper. Then I looked at his face. I let my hand tremble as I reached for it. But then, I stopped. I pulled my hand back. "What is it now, Theo?" Preston's voice was already tightening again. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "I'll sign, I promise, just not here." Nia frowned. "Daddy, what do you mean it's all ready?" "I know," I said, trying to look as frail as possible. "It's just, I want it to be official, proper, not here on a coffee table. I want to do it at my lawyer's office." Preston froze. I could see the calculation in his eyes. A lawyer, a witness, a complication. "Dad, that's really not necessary," he said, forcing a laugh. "This is just a family matter. It's just us. We don't need to pay lawyers for this." This was the moment. I had to stand firm but look weak. "No," I said, my voice shaking but with a thread of stubbornness. "I won't. Not unless she is there. My lawyer, Evelyn Reed. You've met her." I looked down as if ashamed of my own defiance. "She handled Serena's will. She's the only one I trust with papers. I want her to witness it. Please, son. It's the last thing I'll ask. I want to do it right. I want her to see that I'm doing the right thing for my family." Preston stared at me. He was weighing the risks. He was thinking, Evelyn Reed, that old-timer, that small-time local lawyer. What threat is she? The old man is just trying to keep one last shred of his dignity. He's already broken. He's already agreed to sign. He looked at Nia. She gave a little shrug as if to say, "Just let him have this one thing. It doesn't matter." Preston sighed a long-suffering theatrical sigh. He put the papers back in his briefcase. "All right, Theo," he said, as if granting a favor to a child. "Fine. We'll do it your way. At your little lawyer's office, if it makes you feel better." "Thank you, son," I whispered, relief flooding my voice. "Thank you." "We'll pick you up tomorrow morning," he said, all business now. 10 o'clock. Be ready. We'll go to her office, you'll sign, and then we can finally start taking care of you." He and Nia left. I heard the front door close. I sat in my chair for a full minute, the silence of the house returning. The fake tears dried on my face. I stopped shaking. I picked up my phone and dialed Evelyn's number. "He's in Evie," I said, my voice no longer weak. "The trap is set. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., your old office." I heard her smile on the other end. "Excellent. I'll make the arrangements. Oh, and Theo, good work. You would have made a fine actor." I hung up and looked at the little wooden bird on the mantelpiece, still listening, still recording. "Not actor Evie," I said to the empty room. "Director." I heard the honk. 10 a.m. They were punctual. I peered through the blinds of my living room window. The shiny black BMW, the one Dante's report said was 3 payments behind, idled at my curb. I looked down at my clothes. I had chosen them carefully. The same worn-out cardigan, the faded trousers, the scuffed shoes. I was the very picture of a frail old man ready to be led away. I grabbed the old wooden cane I kept by the door, the one I didn't need. It was the perfect prop. I opened the door and shuffled onto the porch. Preston got out of the driver's side. He was actually whistling, a cheerful, jaunty little tune. It was the sound of a man who thought he'd just solved a $500,000 problem. The sound of a man who had been to prison in his mind and was now finally seeing a way out. He thought he was about to get his hands on my lottery ticket. "Morning, Dad," he called out. His voice was offensively cheerful. He rushed over to help me with the 2 small steps from my porch, his hand grabbing my arm in a grip that was meant to look supportive. It felt like a shackle. "Ready for the big day?" I looked past him. Nia, my daughter. She didn't get out of the car. She just gave a weak little wave from the passenger seat, her face pale. She wouldn't look me in the eye. She knew what this was. She knew she was here to witness the legal execution of her father's life, and she was going along with it. "I think so, son," I mumbled, leaning heavily on the cane. "Just a little nervous about all these Papers. Don't you worry your head about a thing, Preston said, patting my back as he guided me into the back seat. That's what family is for. We'll handle everything. The drive was quiet. Preston kept tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, still humming that little tune. He was already spending the money in his head. My $30 million. He was already planning the vacations, the new car, the payoffs to the clients he had stolen from. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "You're really doing the right thing, Theo," he said, his voice smooth as oil. "You'll be so much happier at Willow Creek. And Nia, well, she's been so stressed. Once we get this settled and sell the shop, we can finally take that vacation she deserves. We're thinking, maybe Tuscany." I looked out the window. Tuscany. He was going to sell my legacy, the land my wife and I built to drink wine in Italy. The arrogance of it was breathtaking. I just nodded. That's nice, son." He pulled the car up to the curb in front of a tired-looking brown brick building. The Mutual Building. A Class B office block, respectable but faded. The lobby was probably dark tile and dim fluorescent lights. It was the perfect office for a small-time local lawyer like Evelyn Reed. Preston killed the engine. He turned around in his seat, a smug, satisfied grin plastered on his face. He thought he was home. He thought the game was over. "All right," he said, reaching for his expensive briefcase on the seat next to Nia. "Floor 12, you said, let's go get this over with. The sooner we sign, the sooner we can get you settled." I didn't move, I just sat there. I let my eyes go wide with my practiced confusion. "Oh dear," I said, my voice shaking just the right amount. Preston's smile froze. What now, Theo?" His voice was sharp. The irritation was immediate. "She called," I stammered, tapping the pocket of my cardigan where I kept my old flip phone. "Just this morning, while you were in the shower. I'm so sorry, I almost forgot. Oh, I'm so forgetful these days." "Forgot what?" he snapped. "The meeting," I said. "It's not here." "What do you mean it's not here?" Preston barked. Nia finally turned around, her face filled with alarm. She said something about a partner's office, a last-minute change. She said it was very important, something about her building having a water pipe burst. Preston's face flushed a deep red. He was a man on a tight schedule. This was an inconvenience. "A last-minute change? Are you kidding me? Or give me the address." I fumbled in my cardigan pocket again, pulling out a small wrinkled piece of paper. I handed it to him. He snatched it from my hand and read the address. His eyes widened. "The Harrison Tower." "That Harrison Tower. The new glass skyscraper downtown." "I think so," I said, trying to look as helpless as possible. "Is that far?" Preston stared at the paper. I could see the wheels turning in his head. The Harrison Tower. The most expensive, exclusive office space in the entire city. A place where a single square foot of rent cost more than my entire house. He was confused. This didn't fit the narrative. This didn't match the poor old man or the small-time lawyer, but then his arrogance took over. I saw the look on his face change. He processed it. Ah, he must have thought. She's just a small lawyer, so she's piggybacking on a meeting. She's borrowed a conference room from a bigger firm to try and look important. He couldn't possibly imagine that I belonged there. He couldn't see the truth even when it was written on a piece of paper right in front of him. He scoffed a short, ugly sound. "Whatever. It doesn't matter where you sign the paper, old man. It all spends the same." He jammed the key back into the ignition and the BMW roared to life. "Fine. We'll go to the fancy building. But this is the last stop, Theo. You're signing those papers." "Yes, son," I whispered, leaning my head back against the seat. "Whatever you say." As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the old Mutual Building. The first part of the trap had been laid. Now we were heading to the real one. We were heading to my office. He still had no idea. He still thought he was the hunter. He still thought he was in control. The arrogance of the man. It was going to be his ruin. The Harrison Tower was not just a building, it was a statement. A sheer wall of dark glass and steel that climbed 55 stories into the sky, reflecting the clouds. It was the most expensive, exclusive piece of commercial real estate in the city. When I gave Preston the address, he just stared at the wrinkled paper. He looked up at the building, then at me, then back at the paper. His brain couldn't connect the two. This place didn't fit the poor old man narrative. It didn't fit the small-time local lawyer narrative. He scoffed a short, ugly sound. "Whatever. She's probably just meeting us in the lobby Starbucks." We walked in. The lobby wasn't a lobby, it was a cathedral. The floors were a universe of polished white marble. The walls were hung with enormous museum-quality abstract paintings, and the only sound was the hushed whisper of a waterfall cascading down a 3-story granite wall. Nia stopped dead. Her mouth fell open slightly. She looked around like a tourist who had wandered into a palace. Preston, trying to look like he belonged, visibly straightened his tie. His suit, which had looked so sharp outside my little house, suddenly looked cheap, ill-fitting. I kept my shoulders slumped. I leaned heavily on my wooden cane. The performance wasn't over. Not quite. A uniformed concierge behind a massive stone desk looked up. He didn't look at Preston or Nia. His eyes met mine. "Good morning, Mr. Holloway," he said, his voice respectful and warm. "They are waiting for you upstairs." Preston's head snapped toward me. His eyes were wide with confusion. The concierge smiled at him. "The penthouse elevator is this way, sir." Preston just nodded, dumbstruck. We walked to a private elevator bank. Brass doors polished to a mirror finish. I stepped in. They followed their footsteps, hesitant on the marble. The doors closed, sealing us in a silent, mirrored box. It was the longest elevator ride of my life. I watched my daughter and my son-in-law in the reflection. They looked small. They looked trapped. Nia was nervously twisting the strap of her purse. Preston was sweating a small bead of moisture on his temple. The numbers on the display climbed. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55. A soft, polite ding echoed in the car. The doors slid open. This was not a law office. There was no waiting room with cheap chairs. There was no receptionist behind a sliding glass window. The doors opened directly onto a vast open space. The floor was dark, polished walnut. The entire far wall, 50 feet of it, was a single sheet of glass looking down on the entire city. The city I had quietly, patiently bought. The air smelled of leather, and I don't know success. A massive dark abstract painting hung on one wall. I smiled. It was a Rothko. It was Serena's favorite. And standing in the center of the room by a massive mahogany desk was Evelyn Reed. She wasn't the small-time lawyer Preston had imagined. She wore a sharp, custom-tailored royal blue suit. She looked like the CEO she was. She looked like she ate men like Preston for breakfast. Standing beside her, holding a tablet, was Dante Marcus. He wasn't a PI today. He was my head of security. And by the window, his back to us, silhouetted against the morning sky, stood the third man. Older, impeccably dressed in a gray suit that probably cost more than Preston's car. Nia and Preston just froze in the elevator doorway. They were completely, utterly paralyzed. "Preston," Nia whispered, her voice trembling. "What is this? This can't be. Is this Mrs. Reed's office?" Evelyn Reed stepped forward. Her heels clicked on the walnut floor, a sharp, accusing sound in the cavernous silence. "No, Miss Holloway," Evelyn said. Her voice wasn't the friendly voice on the phone. It was the voice of an executioner. "This is not my office." She let the silence stretch, letting them hang there suspended in their confusion. "This is Mr. Holloway's office." Preston just stared. He looked from Evelyn to the room to the priceless art, and then he looked at me. I was still standing there, hunched over, leaning on my cane and my old worn cardigan. He burst out laughing. It was a loud, nervous, ugly sound. He barked, pointing a finger at me. You're kidding me, right? You mean him?" He pointed at my scuffed shoes. "This old man, his office, what is he, the janitor?" That was the moment. My cue. I let the old wooden cane drop from my hand. It hit the walnut floor with a loud, hard, definitive clack. The sound echoed in the room. Preston's laughter died in his throat. I straightened up. I stood tall. I pushed my shoulders back, feeling the tightness in my 71-year-old spine unwind. I let the full strength I had hidden for decades come flooding back. I unbuttoned the old worn-out cardigan and dropped it onto a nearby leather chair. My voice when I spoke was not the weak, reedy whisper of a confused old man. It was the voice that had brokered the patent deal 40 years ago. It was the voice that chaired board meetings. It was clear, it was cold, and it was loud. It filled the room. "Welcome, Preston," I said. Nia gasped. Preston's face went white. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. "Welcome to the headquarters of Holloway Properties," I said, walking slowly toward him. He instinctively took a step back. Holloway Properties, I continued. My company. The company I founded 30 years ago. The company that manages the 4 apartment buildings, the 2 retail fronts, and the auto shop you were so eager to get your hands on. You called it a gold mine, Preston. You were right. You just got the valuation a little wrong. Naya was shaking her hand over her mouth. But, she stammered, but you're a mechanic. She looked from me to the room to Evelyn, her mind completely shattered. The shop, the grease, the bills. I was a mechanic, I said, my voice cutting through her panic. I walked toward my daughter. She flinched as if seeing me for the very first time. I was a mechanic who invented a hydraulic valve component that revolutionized heavy machinery. I was a mechanic who sold the patent for that invention for more money than you, Preston, have ever even dreamed of. And I was a husband who, along with his wife, decided that that money would never ever define our family. We raised you to value hard work, Nia, not handouts. I turned to Preston, who looked like he was about to be sick. We lived simply. We saved. We invested. Oh, how we invested. That worthless old shop you were going to sell for a few $100,000. That land, Nia. That land, I said, emphasizing the word from the warning letter, is valued at $30 million. Nia didn't faint, but it was close. She staggered back, grabbing Preston's arm. 30 million. Preston just stared. He was no longer a predator. He was just a thief. A small, stupid, cornered thief who had just realized he'd tried to rob the wrong bank. He'd tried to rob the owner of the bank. I stood there in the center of my own office, my real office, and let the silence stretch. $30 million. The words hung in the air, heavy as lead. Nia was holding onto Preston's arm, her knuckles white. Preston was just staring. His mouth was slightly open. His mind was visibly scrambling, trying to process, trying to find an angle, a lie, a way out. He looked like a cornered animal, and he was about to find out the trap was far bigger than he ever imagined. You, Preston finally stammered. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You're lying. This is a trick. This is some kind of elaborate joke. You're just a broke old mechanic. He's not lying, son. The voice came from the window. It was deep. It was powerful. It was laced with a disappointment so profound it felt like a physical weight in the room. The third man, the older gentleman in the impeccable gray suit, turned around slowly. He stepped out of the bright silhouette, the morning light catching his strong features. I watched Preston. The color, the blood, all of it just drained from his face. He went from red-faced anger to a ghostly, sickly white. He looked like he'd just been punched in the stomach. Dad, Preston whispered. His voice was a tiny, strangled sound. What? What are you doing here? Arthur Sinclair Sr., the titan of industry, the name that was carved into the marble of half the buildings downtown. Preston's father. He looked at his son not with rage, but with a cold, devastating shame that was far, far worse. I'm here, Preston, Arthur said, his voice quiet but carrying across the vast room, because my oldest friend and colleague Theodore asked me to be. Preston's head snapped back and forth between us. Colleague, you know him. You know him. Arthur Sinclair. Senior actually laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was a dry, bitter, terrible sound. Know him, he boomed. Preston, you insufferable, arrogant fool. Theodore Holloway has sat next to me on the City Philanthropic Board for 15 years. He sat next to me at the mayor's charity gala last month. He and my late wife served on the Museum Acquisition Committee together for a decade. He is one of the most respected and most private investors in this entire city. Arthur took a heavy step toward his son. Preston instinctively flinched, taking a step back. You, Arthur snarled, jabbing a finger at him. You are an embarrassment. You are a disgrace to the Sinclair name. I stepped forward. It was time to close the loop for them. It was time to twist the final knife of understanding. I looked at Arthur, and I let a small, genuine smile touch my lips for the first time in 3 long days. Thank you, Arthur, I said, my voice clear and strong. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't received your warning. Preston's head whipped back toward me. Warning, what warning? I didn't answer. I just looked at him. Nia, who had been frozen in silent horror, finally spoke. Her voice was a terrified squeak. The letter, the writing at the bottom of the letter. I nodded. They are coming for the land. Cancel the credit card. A friend. I looked at Arthur. It was you. Arthur Sinclair Sr. looked at his son with utter contempt. You want to know how I knew Preston? You want to know how your pathetic little plan unraveled before it even began? He walked over to the massive mahogany desk and leaned against it, crossing his arms. He looked like a king about to pass sentence. You did it to yourself. You always do. You got sloppy. Your arrogance betrayed you. Arthur's gaze was cutting. 3 weeks ago, at the founders' dinner at the club, you'd had too much scotch as usual. You were bragging. Preston was shaking his head, whispering, "No." "Oh yes," his father said. "You were laughing. You were telling me and your Uncle Frank that you had a big fish on the line. And you said you were handling the estate of a senile old mechanic who was sitting on a gold mine and didn't even know it." Preston was sweating profusely now. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "Shut up," Arthur commanded. "You kept talking. You said the old man's daughter was wrapped around your finger, and that the old man himself was losing his mind. You said his name was Theo Holloway." Arthur leaned in. "I nearly choked on my drink. I made you repeat the name. You said it again. Theo Holloway. You laughed. You said, 'Don't worry, Dad. By the time I'm done, this old fool will be safe in a home and I'll be $500,000 richer.' You thought it was hilarious." Arthur shook his head, his disgust palpable. "I have known Theo Holloway for 15 years. I know his mind is sharper at 71 than yours will ever be. I knew in that instant that my son was not just an arrogant fool. I knew my son was a criminal, a common, pathetic, stupid thief." Nia let out a strangled sob. "So you—" "Yes," Arthur said, his voice cold. "I went home that night. I was so ashamed I couldn't sleep. I knew I couldn't call Theo directly. You'd find out. You'd trace the call. You'd cover your tracks. So I did the only thing I could think of. I found out you, Nia, were sending that disgusting brochure. I had my assistant intercept the mail carrier. We opened the letter. I added the warning myself right at the bottom. I told him to check the credit card. I knew if you were this depraved, you were also stupid. And thieves are always stupid with money." He was right. Preston was finished. He had no lies left. He was exposed. Exposed as a thief, exposed as a fool. And worse, he was exposed in front of the one man whose opinion he craved, his father. "Arthur," I said, my voice calm, "I thank you for your friendship. You saved me a great deal of trouble." "Niece," Arthur said, turning to me, his face filled with a deep personal pain. "I am the one who must apologize, Theo. I am deeply, profoundly sorry for the vermin my family has unleashed upon yours." He turned back to Preston. His face was no longer angry. It was just empty. Dead. "You were going to commit him?" Arthur asked, his voice barely a whisper. "You were going to steal from my friend, from a man who gave his daughter everything. All for what?" He gestured at Nia's expensive coat, the one my $10,000 limit had likely paid for. "To cover your debts. To pay for that." Preston finally broke. "I needed the money." He screamed, his voice cracking, tears of self-pity streaming down his face. "You don't understand. I'm ruined. I'm going to prison. "You are worse than ruined, Preston," Arthur said, his voice flat. "You are a disappointment, and you are disinherited. As of this moment, you are no longer my son." Preston's face was a mask of disbelief and pure animalistic panic. He had been disowned by his father. He had been exposed as a fool. He was a trapped rat, and he did what all trapped rats do. He lunged, not at me, not at his father. He lunged with his words. "No!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "This is not happening. This is a setup, a trick." He spun and pointed a shaking finger at me. "He's in on it. He's confused. I told you, Dad, he's senile. He doesn't know what he's doing, and you—" He wheeled on his father, Arthur. "You're letting this lawyer—" He spat the word at Evelyn. "Manipulate him. I was just trying to help him. I was protecting the family." Nia, seeing her only lifeline, scrambled to her feet and joined his desperate chorus. "It's true, Daddy. Theo, tell them, we were just worried about you, the gas, the bills. We were just trying to help." The word help echoed in the magnificent room. "Help," Evelyn Reed repeated. Her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the hysteria like a razor. She walked slowly from behind the desk, her blue suit a beacon of absolute power. "That's an interesting word, Preston." She looked at Dante, who simply tapped his tablet. A large hidden screen on the wall disguised as a piece of abstract art flickered to life. "You're right, Preston," Evelyn said, her eyes boring into him. "This is a misunderstanding. We seem to have misunderstood your definition of help. Allow me to clarify." She nodded at Dante. "Play the recording from Mr. Holloway's living room. Yesterday, 4:18 p.m. Dante pressed a key, and then Preston's voice filled the $30 million penthouse. It wasn't his slick professional voice. It was the hard, ugly, threatening voice I had heard in my own home. "Listen, Theo!" His recorded voice boomed, amplified by the hidden speakers. "We don't have time for these sentimental games. We are trying to help you." "But I don't want to go," my own frail, terrified voice replied. "I won't sign." "It's my shop. It's my house." Then came Preston's voice again, the final, brutal threat. "If you fight us on this, we will take it to a judge. We will file for a court-ordered guardianship. We will have you declared mentally incompetent. It's that simple." Evelyn let the recording play. The silence in the room, punctuated only by the sound of Preston's own voice damning him. Preston stood frozen. He looked as if he had been turned to stone. "Nia, oh Nia." She let out a small, strangled sound like an animal caught in a trap. She put her hands over her ears. "No, stop it. Make it stop." "Oh, we're not finished," Evelyn said. She nodded at Dante again. "And this is my personal favorite. This is the help from Miss Holloway." Dante played the next file. Nia's voice, bright, dismissive, cold. "That old shop, it's just sitting there. It's not worth much. Maybe a few $100,000, more than enough for you to live in luxury at Willow Creek for the rest of your life." Evelyn hit the stop button. The silence was absolute. "A few $100,000, Evelyn repeated, walking slowly around the cowering couple. "For a property portfolio valued at $30 million, that's not help, Preston. That's grand larceny. And you used my client's daughter, his only child, to try and sell him on the theft of his own life's work." Preston's face was a mottled red and white. "You recorded me in his house. That's illegal." I almost laughed. The man he had tried to have legally declared insane was going to be lectured on legality. Evelyn smiled. It was a terrifying sight. "Illegal? Oh, Preston. You, a lawyer, should know that in this state it is perfectly legal to record a conversation when one party consents. And my client Theodore Holloway, the sole owner of the property, gave his full consent. We have the signed affidavits. We were not recording you. We were gathering evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud against the elderly." She let that phrase, "against the elderly," hang in the air, aimed directly at Arthur Sinclair. "But we were just exploring options," Nia cried, her face a mess of tears and running mascara. "We were worried he was confused. You were doctor shopping," Evelyn snapped, cutting her off. She strode to the table and with a dramatic flourish threw down a stack of papers. They scattered across the polished wood. "Here," Evelyn said, "is the sworn affidavit from Dr. Eris Thorne, who states Preston offered him a generous retainer to certify Mr. Holloway as unstable without an evaluation, an offer he refused." She threw down another sheet. "Here is the statement from Dr. Lena Halpern, who states you attempted to bribe her into signing commitment papers, a crime she threatened to report you for." She threw down another. "And here is the itemized statement for the emergency credit card, $9,845.12, in 2 months. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger at Naya. "You, Naya, while you were so worried about your father, you were buying $200 shoes at Saks. While you were so concerned he couldn't pay his bills, you were charging a $700 spa day. And this," she tapped the last charge, "Le Bernardin, $302. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. It was quite literally the Last Supper." Nia just sobbed a pathetic wailing sound. She was broken, but Preston still had some fight, the desperation of a cornered man. "This is circumstantial," he yelled, his voice cracking. "It's a family matter. It's our business. You can't prove anything. It's just family helping family." "Family business," Dante Marcus said. It was the first time he had spoken. His voice was calm, deep, and devoid of all emotion. It was the voice of a man stating a fact, like a coroner reading a report. Preston and Nia hadn't even noticed him. He had been standing by the wall, a silent observer. Now he stepped forward, his tablet in his hand. "Speaking of business," Mr. Sinclair, Dante said. Preston looked at him confused. Who the hell are you? I'm Dante Marcus, he said. Evelyn Reed and Mr. Holloway hired me to look into your finances. You were right to be worried, Preston. You're in a lot of trouble. But it has nothing to do with your father-in-law. Dante tapped his tablet. The screen on the wall changed. It was no longer a blank screen. It was a bank statement, a trust account ledger. Preston looked at it, and for the first time I saw true, soul-deep terror in his eyes. That's private, he whispered. It was, Dante replied, until you stole from it. Dante turned to Arthur Sinclair, who was watching this all with a face carved from granite. Mr. Sinclair, Dante said, your son didn't just make a bad investment. He committed felony embezzlement. 3 months ago, he illegally transferred $540,000 from his law firm's client trust account into a private high-risk cryptocurrency wallet. Arthur closed his eyes. He lost it all, Dante continued. He was trying to cover the loss by moving money from other client accounts. A classic Ponzi scheme. Your partners at the firm discovered the discrepancy last week, Mr. Sinclair. They are the ones who contacted me. Preston staggered, actually grabbing the back of a chair to hold himself up. No, they said they'd give me till the end of the month. They lied, Dante said. They wanted me to gather evidence on all your activities before they called the DA. And you, Preston, you just handed it to us. Dante put the tablet down on the desk. $500,000 in embezzlement, tens of thousands in credit card fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud against an elder. You're not just going to be disbarred, Mr. Sinclair, you're going to prison for a very, very long time. This meeting wasn't just a family intervention. It was the final step in my investigation, and you just confessed to everything. The moment Dante's words hit the air, the last string holding Nia together snapped. She didn't just cry, she collapsed. She fell to the polished walnut floor, her expensive cashmere coat pooling around her like a shroud. It was a complete, agonizing breakdown, a wail of pure, selfish despair. No, she shrieked, her voice echoing in the vast, silent room. No, 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 it wasn't me, it was him. She scrambled on her knees, a pathetic crawling motion, and pointed a shaking finger at her husband. It was Preston, he made me do it. He told me you were confused, Daddy. He told me we were helping you. I didn't know about the money, I didn't know about any of it. It was all him. Please, Daddy, please. It was him. It was a pathetic performance. A desperate last-ditch attempt to save herself by sacrificing her partner. Preston just stared at her. His face was a void. The fight had drained out of him. The terror, the anger. It was all gone, replaced by a hollow, terrifying emptiness. He had lost everything. His father, his career, his freedom, his wife. He looked at Nia on the floor, then at Arthur, then at Evelyn, and finally, his dead, empty eyes landed on me. He recognized me now. He finally saw the man who had beaten him. You, he whispered, his voice a dry rasp. You set me up. This whole time, the frail old man, the gas, the lawyer's office, all of it. You set me up, you old bastard. You gamed me. I took a step toward him. I was no longer an actor. I was just Theodore Holloway, a 71-year-old man who was tired of the lies. No, Preston. I said, my voice quiet, but it cut through the room. I didn't set you up. I just didn't walk into the trap you set for me. I looked him dead in the eye. You did this to yourself. You lost because you underestimated me. You underestimated me because I'm a black man. You underestimated me because I'm 71 years old. You underestimated me because I don't wear my money on my suit or drive it on the street. I gestured to the city glowing outside the 55-story window. You looked at me and you saw a senile old mechanic. You didn't see a man. You saw a target. You saw a walking, talking dollar sign you could cash in to fix your pathetic, fraudulent life. You were so blinded by your own arrogance, by your own greed, you never once stopped to think. You never once asked yourself, what if he's not? What if the old man is smarter than I am? I shook my head, not in anger but in pity. You destroyed yourself, Preston, with your own arrogance, your own ignorance, and your own bottomless greed. You did this. Preston had no answer. He just stood there, a hollowed-out shell of a man. Arthur Sinclair Sr. finally moved. He walked from the window, his heavy, expensive shoes silent on the rug. He stopped in front of his son. He didn't yell. He didn't rage. He just delivered the sentence. Preston, he said, his voice flat, you will not receive another dollar from the Sinclair Family Trust. You are not to contact me. You are not to contact your mother. As of this moment, you are no longer my son." "And," Evelyn Reed added, stepping forward and placing a hand on Dante's shoulder, "Mr. Marcus will be delivering his entire file on your embezzlement. The bank records, the client testimony, all of it, directly to the Bar Association and the District Attorney's Office this afternoon." The 1-2 punch was absolute. Disowned, disgraced, destitute. Imprisonment was now a certainty. Preston finally crumpled, falling into the leather chair behind him, his head in his hands. I looked down at my daughter Nia, still weeping on the floor. She looked up at me, her face a ruin of mascara and self-pity. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Daddy, please. What about me?" I looked at her, my daughter, my only child. She had made her choice 3 years ago when she slammed my door. She made it again when she wrote that letter, and she made it a final time when she sat silently in my living room yesterday, letting her husband threaten to destroy my mind. "You, Nia," I said, "you chose your path. You chose him. Now you get to walk that path, with him." I turned my back on them, on the ruins of their lives. I walked to the great glass window joining Arthur. We stood side by side, 2 old men, 2 fathers, looking down at the city spread out below us. My city. Behind me I could hear Evelyn and Dante quietly gathering their papers. I could hear the sounds of my daughters weeping. I could hear the terrible, agonizing silence of the man who had tried to steal my life. I didn't look back. I just stared out at the horizon, at the future I had built and the future I had just reclaimed. Here is the lesson learned from this story. The biggest lesson from this story is to never judge a person by their appearance. Nia and Preston saw an old, frail mechanic in worn-out clothes. They assumed he was poor, weak, and confused. They didn't see the brilliant, wealthy, and powerful man he truly was. Their arrogance and greed blinded them to the truth. They built a trap for a mouse only to discover they had poked a sleeping lion. True strength and true wealth are often silent, watching and waiting. What would you have done in Theodore's place?